Hello everyone, thank you for stopping by our channel. Have you ever encountered stories like this? James returned home after yet another interview, and it seemed like he wouldn't be hearing back from them again. He walked into the kitchen where his wife, Hayley, was making dinner. "Hey dear, how did it go?" she asked. James hesitated for a moment, thinking about how to break the news of another letdown. He had been job hunting for a month since being laid off, but not wanting to worry his wife, he replied, "It went all right. They said they'd give me a call by the end of the week." "Hayley, I saw a job opening at your company yesterday. I meet all the requirements, and I'm thinking of applying," James added. Hayley looked at him with concern and bit her lip. "Do you really think we should work in the same place? Is that a good idea?" she asked. "Why not? We'd have the same schedule, leave home together, and be on the same commute after work," James said with a grin. "We could even take our vacations at the same time." "Well, if it works out that way," Hayley replied, frowning as she turned back to the stove. James was puzzled by her reaction but had already made up his mind to send in his resume. He had enough of the rejections, it was time to get back to work. A week later, James was called for the first interview, which he passed with ease. The second round was tougher, but he managed to outperform the competition. Finally, he got the long-awaited offer for a solid position at a branch of a large company. He decided to celebrate the good news with Hayley, so he bought a cake and some champagne before heading home. When he got there, Hayley had just arrived from work. "Hayley, they hired me," James said excitedly, placing the treats on the table. "Oh, congratulations," Hayley replied, her enthusiasm feeling a bit forced. James immediately picked up on her tone. "Hayley, what's wrong? Why do you seem upset?" Hayley sighed heavily and began explaining her worries. She feared that seeing each other all day, every day would lead to frequent arguments, that they'd get tired of one another, and that they'd eventually run out of things to talk about. Plus, once their colleagues found out they were married, she worried about rumors, jokes, and gossip in the workplace. She mentioned how her friend had gone through a similar situation with her husband and had been miserable because of it. James hugged his wife, trying to reassure her. "We won't have those kinds of problems. And if it helps, we can ask management to keep our marriage private. We'll just maintain a professional relationship at work," he suggested. Hayley seemed to relax a little, and they sat down to enjoy the cake. She declined the champagne, saying she had a headache. Contrary to Hayley's concerns, life started improving. James was really enjoying his new job, and the team seemed friendly at first glance. Whenever he encountered a difficult situation, someone from the team was always there to help. Things with his wife were going smoothly as well. Although she worked in a different part of the large office, they still bumped into each other from time to time. The distance between them actually worked in their favor since they had agreed to keep their relationship under wraps. A few months passed this way. One day, James needed to drop off some documents to the accountant. As he made his way to the right office, his eyes wandered over to his wife's desk, but she wasn't there. He glanced around and eventually spotted her. Hayley was sitting on the edge of a table where a man was seated, her legs crossed as she pointed to some papers. She looked him straight in the eye with a smile, and it was obvious the man was enjoying her company. He didn't look at her like just a colleague. Watching this scene, James felt a sudden jolt of emotion, leaving him with many questions. At that moment, one of his co-workers approached him. "Lost, newbie," the colleague said, giving James a friendly pat on the shoulder. "Not really. Can you tell me who Hayley's talking to over there?" James asked. "Oh, that's Ryan, her department head. He joined us a little before you did, actually, but he's already made quite a few changes to suit himself," the colleague replied with a chuckle. James was confused. "What do you mean?" "Oh, newbie, there's still so much you've got to learn. But it's better to figure it out in a more casual setting," the coworker said with a knowing smile before heading back to his desk. James felt uneasy. What was with the cryptic remarks and odd jokes? He decided to keep an eye on Ryan. The man definitely acted as if he ran the place, chatting up the other employees with confidence, sometimes even arrogance. You could hear him giving condescending advice as if he were mentoring everyone. The female employees seemed drawn to him, whether it was his status or his charm. They often went to him for advice, smiled warmly, and thanked him enthusiastically. Then, they'd gather around the water cooler, throwing glances his way and chatting animatedly. James wasn't about to ignore his colleagues' words. If there was a lot for him to learn, he was more than willing to do so. Soon enough, the chance arose. One Friday afternoon, HR gathered everyone in the conference room for some announcements. The company's large annual corporate event was coming up, to be held in a banquet hall in the city center. Not only would their office be there, but several branches from neighboring cities would also attend. It was going to be a big deal, and everyone was encouraged to show how united they were as a team. After hours' announcement, the office buzzed with excitement as everyone eagerly discussed the event. However, James couldn't shake a feeling of suspicion. He couldn't recall Hayley acting out of the ordinary after past corporate events, and she had been with the company for 6 years. On the way home, he brought up the upcoming event, suggesting that they attend together, but Hayley didn't seem enthusiastic. She brushed it off, saying that these events were usually pretty dull. James found that odd. In the past, she had always been very diligent in preparing for these events and would come back in high spirits. Something didn't seem right. He decided to investigate and quickly formulated a plan. On the day of the corporate party, Hayley didn't seem to be in the best of moods. She was getting ready and applying her makeup, but it was clear her heart wasn't in it. Sensing her change in behavior, James decided to play along. He pretended he had eaten something bad and was now suffering from stomach pains and nausea. His wife, concerned, retrieved some medicine from the cabinet and handed it to him. "Honey, I guess it's just not meant to be for me to join you tonight," he said. "I'll just stay home while you head to the party. You won't die of boredom without me," he added, attempting a smile. His wife frowned noticeably and told him to get better soon, but she started getting ready even faster. She could barely hide her quiet delight. The plan had worked. James waited for a few hours before making his way to the event. By then, the formal part should have been over. He grabbed a taxi and headed to the restaurant. As he entered the hall, he was surprised by the turnout. It wasn't just their office in attendance. He started moving around the room, scanning the crowd for his wife. He stationed himself by the snack table, quietly observing while different scenarios played out in his mind about what he might discover. His thoughts were soon interrupted by a nearby group of co-workers deep in conversation. They were colleagues from his office. "I wonder what Hayley's going to do this time," said a tall brunette. "She can't even handle drinking. Have you seen her when she's tipsy?" Another chimed in, a young guy, laughing as he echoed a line from a recent speech. "Well, at least she can still show how united we all are," he joked. "I bet she'll latch onto someone new, like she did with Ryan before," added the girl. Everything became crystal clear to James at that moment. This was exactly what he needed to find out. He felt a surge of anger rising within him and knew he had to be more observant. He started looking around carefully to confirm his colleague's words. Soon enough, he saw it for himself. Hayley was dancing with her boss, Ryan, and it was obvious she wasn't bored. After the dance, they sat at a table, raising their glasses in a toast. Ryan leaned in and whispered something into Hayley's ear. She smiled and nodded, with no sign of surprise or awkwardness, making it clear their relationship wasn't just professional. Ryan downed his drink in one go, took Hayley by the hand, and led her out of the hall. James quickly followed. The pair walked down the corridor and turned toward a distant door. After waiting for a moment, James stormed into the room. Everything his colleagues had hinted at was now laid out before him. Hayley was on the table, her dress discarded at Ryan's feet. Disregarding any sense of formality or potential consequences, James charged at the smug Ryan and punched him squarely in the face with all the strength he had. Ryan, seemingly unaccustomed to such a sudden attack, didn't even attempt to fight back. He hit the floor and began scrambling away from James in shock. James then turned to Haley, who was staring at her lover in fear. "How long has this been going on?" he shouted. Haley burst into tears, unable to speak a word. "Don't touch her." Ryan, wiping blood from his sleeve, finally managed to stand up. "What do you think you're doing?" Ryan yelled as he attempted to strike back, but James blocked the hit. "She's my wife, you scumbag. Stay back if you don't want more," James roared. Fear was now evident in Ryan's eyes. It seemed he hadn't known that Haley was married, or more likely, he didn't know her husband now worked with them. That night, Haley didn't return home. In the morning, her friends came to collect her belongings. She was too ashamed to face James. She didn't even attempt to apologize, knowing it would be pointless. James would never forgive such a betrayal. They eventually divorced, and James left the company on his own. He wanted nothing to do with the toxic environment any longer. He found a new job at another company, where the atmosphere was much better, but he now avoided company events entirely. What are your thoughts on this situation? Feel free to share them in the comments. Thanks for sticking with the story until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button to help promote the channel. All the best.